And the record button has been hit. That's a yes too.
Yes, it is.
Excellent. Awesome. All right, let's get going. As Rich said, my name is Ray Davis. I'm a principal consultant on RIM for Innovative Development. I'm the class host for the Idea series, and I am the chief storyteller. You just heard from Rich Slaughter. He's marketing manager at Innovative Development. He is my co-host, and I'm telling you right now, he is so psyched and jazzed and wired. He can't wait for the spring 2025 semester to start. So we're not even done 2024 yet, and he's ready to rock and roll for next year. And actually, so am I. I'm really looking forward to it. Our class schedule this year, we've already completed the first four classes, and today does mark the end of our semester with the fifth class, and that is the future of records management. Our agenda for today, we'll start with a couple of questions in Q and Ray, and then we'll just move on to different topics that we want to talk about in dealing with, what's happening current day, but what can happen in the future, whether it's artificial intelligence, data privacy, security, the evolving regulatory landscape, the hybrid work environment, excuse me, and then we'll finish with how can you influence the future of records management. All right, we'll start with Q and Ray. The first question: how important is a budget to records management? And if we'll talk about Ray in the third person, to Ray, it's huge. Um, we didn't really get super involved in talking about the budget process in this semester. Maybe we'll do that in the next semester. But budgets can be easy as ranging from what we call zero budgets, which you approve something one line item at a time as it happens. Let's just say you're going into 2025 and you decide you want records management software. So you're not doing a full-blown budget. You're just going item by item. You do your research on software, you find out the cost, and then you submit that to whoever in your organization that approves the ability to do an expenditure like that, and they're approved one at a time. So they're called zero budgets because there's no budget up front. You do them one line at a time, all the way up to a full-blown budget process where every year before the new year starts, whether it's a calendar year or a fiscal year, you do a full-blown budget, salaries for your staff, what is your equipment cost, what is your office space, what are your records management expenses for physical records, and anything else that you need within your program. And then that has to be approved by somebody within your organization. And then from there, with that type of budget, we always like to make sure that we do the follow-up and say, is what we budgeted, were we accurate? Were we too high? Were we too low? That type of thing. But that's a full-blown budget done before the actual working year ever starts. I will tell you that, in my opinion, and as Rich would tell you, my opinion is humble as it's not. There's three keys to budget success for me. Number one, be complete. I'm not a fan of zero budgets. I'm very structured. I'm very detailed. I like to plan things out. So a full-blown budget process works better for me. And I like to be complete. I want to make sure that I've addressed all the items within my program, including when I was working at Commerce Bank for 20 years, where I ran their program. A lot of the expenses for uh, pickups and deliveries of physical records, any of the services that we use with third-party vendors, they were all billed down to what we called the cost center level. So in essence, it wasn't coming out of my budget, it was coming out of the individual cost centers. So then I would also be a resource for those cost centers to say, okay, last year you had this amount of expenses, and help them work through their budget and what they would predict, because it wasn't going to be in mine, it was going to be in theirs. Striving for accuracy. We're going to talk about AI in a second. If you can prove through analytics and AI that every year a certain expense increases 20% a year, then you could feel comfortable promoting that in your upcoming budget. But don't just throw a number, as they say, don't just throw something at a wall and see if it sticks. I want to strive for accuracy. I want a reason why I gave you a number. Why did I say this was going to cost 10,000? Why did I say I was going to spend 15,000? And I want to give you accurate information on why. That doesn't mean when the year the budget pertains to is over that I was 100% accurate, but I had legitimate reasons for why I was giving you the numbers that I was. And finally, and again, this is the structure guy in me, this is the detail guy in me. I am updating the budget with actual numbers as that year is going along. And at the end of that budget year, when all the actual numbers are in, I do that comparison, and it's a learning thing for me. Was I accurate in what I bid? If I was off, why was I off? And hopefully I wasn't way off. But again, yes, budgets are huge to me, big time. Question number two, if you're not in a big company, who can be your senior champion? It's a great question because, I mean, I've been in companies as few as 6 people up until 17,000 people. Quite a difference. There were, obviously several zeros behind those numbers. But what I found was that for me, in the organizations that I've been in, who is the senior most person in your company? Maybe it's a general manager, or maybe there's a division manager or an office manager. I worked for a company. We sold products in the restaurant and bakery industry, and our office manager was the senior person. We were one location out of a national company, so that's who I would go to. If you're in a smaller company, maybe you're going to the company owner, or in the 6-person company, I went to my boss. We had a company owner, we had an admin person, we had 2 people in marketing and 2 people in sales, 6 people. So I would go to my boss. He was going to be my senior champion. If I presented something to him and he said, this is above my head, you need to talk to the owner, he's just redirected me now to a new senior champion. So again, whether you're a really small company or a really large company, you really need a senior champion when you're trying to promote your initiatives, because it comes out more as a directive to do something versus not just, I'll give Ray an ear, listen to him for a little bit. No, it comes out as a directive. Follow what Ray's doing and get it done. All right, we're going to start with artificial intelligence. And my introduction to artificial intelligence are really 2 things. And artificial intelligence has been around for a long time. A lot of people thought it just really got started with ChatGPT a number of years ago, but no, artificial intelligence has been around for a long time, albeit in different forms of artificial intelligence. But my 2 memories are, first, Rosie the Robot from the Jetsons, which, if any of you, I don't even know if it's still on, but it used to be a cartoon on Saturday mornings. And you had the Jetson family, and you had Jane the wife, and George the husband, and the rest of the family. They even had a dog, Astro, or as he would say, Resro. But they had a robot named Rosie, and Rosie did everything. Rosie cooked the meals. Rosie cleaned the house, the home. Rosie did whatever the Jetsons wanted her to do. So from an artificial intelligence standpoint, that was one of my introductions there, although that's not necessarily 100% accurate in what artificial intelligence is all about. One of the other memories for me is in 1996, Gary Kasparov, chess champion, went up against Deep Blue, which was a computer from IBM. One of the things that people remember from the first match was that Deep Blue took the first match. It was supposed to be a culmination of 6 matches, 6 different chess matches, and Deep Blue won the first. What people fail to remember is Gary Kasparov took 4 out of the next 5. So he literally beat Deep Blue 4 matches to 2. And then in 1997, they had a rematch, and Deep Blue won 3.5 to 2.5 because one of the chess matches was a draw. But just to think that a human being could go up against a computer, and nothing against Gary Kasparov, he was a chess champion. But when you understand that a computer is processing millions of things a second and knows every move that can be made and is looking all around the board and doesn't get distracted, where a human being can get distracted, you might not realize that your opponent's piece over here is setting your king up to be checkmated. It's just amazing to me that Gary Kasparov had the success that he did. But again, those were my two initial memories of artificial intelligence. There are a number of challenges with artificial intelligence. Um, First off, there's a suggestion that there are biases that are put in place, and that's proven to also be true. I watched a documentary a little while ago, and in it, Steve Wozniak and his wife were both extended credit from the same company, and it was noted that Steve Wozniak was extended a higher level of credit than his wife, despite the fact they didn't have individual bank accounts. They had joint bank accounts. So all the financial information was coming from the same source. So why did Steve have a higher credit rating or a higher credit opportunity than his wife? Some believe there was a bias because his wife was female. Whether that's true or not, whether that really was the bias that was in place or something else caused that to happen, who knows? But it can definitely be set up that there are biases that go into artificial intelligence based off of the information that's put in it. Another concern is accuracy of information output. And the one thing that I can tell you when it comes to artificial intelligence, and there's a lot of people that know me that I like computers, they're okay, but I'm not going to be an IT person. But originally, I went into college to be a computer science major, and I obviously went in a totally different direction. But I've always remembered one of the phrases that they used in computer science and programming and things like that. And it was called GIGO, GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. And the same thing is true when it comes to the accuracy of output in artificial intelligence. If you put garbage information into the artificial intelligence, it's going to spit out garbage information. So that's an issue. Job displacement. There are a lot of people that feel that human beings are going to lose their jobs because artificial intelligence and robots and things like that will take those jobs over. And then all of a sudden, you're going to see a lot of human beings out of work. We've seen it in the automotive industry where you've got robots that are doing welding and different parts of putting vehicles together. They are employed there, but it's not everywhere. And ultimately, and I can't prove this, yeah, there may be some jobs that do go to robots, and programmed by artificial intelligence, but you need human beings, you need the people. And then finally, the fourth challenge of artificial intelligence is it's a weapon against humanity. How many movies have we seen out there where the robots come back and, all of a sudden the human beings have to go underground or go into hiding because the robots take over. And that's always a concern. I want to share with you a couple of items that deal with the challenges of artificial intelligence. And the first deals with the accuracy of information output. Back in 2016, Microsoft had created a chatbot called Tay. And while it was probably a well-intentioned experiment, it went terribly wrong. There was a lot of information that was fed into it, including a significant amount of information that was offensive, and there was hateful content. And then when Tay started to interact with the people that were coming to visit and engage with it, Tay began mimicking and amplifying the negativity it was exposed to. But along with that, there was exploitation by the users that picked up on very quickly what was going on and Tay's vulnerability, and they intentionally fed in more extreme and offensive content. And that prompted Tay to come back with responses that were more coordinated trolling. It was giving posts back that were racist and sexist, and it was just horrible. And the end of the story is it didn't even last 24 hours. Within 16 hours, Microsoft picked up on what was going on and they shut Tay down. They had to, because again, Tay was just spouting hateful rhetoric. So again, you have to really watch when it comes to artificial intelligence. Number one, what information are you putting into it to fuel its intelligence and experience? And number two, what level of interaction are you allowing it to have with individuals? And you also have to worry again about the accuracy. I remember at my previous employer, one of my previous employers, we went into ChatGPT and they said, please give a biography of Ray Davis. And some of the information it came out with was correct, some of it was not. And that was indicating to me that it was picking up on however many Ray Davises were in its database. It was pulling information from all the Ray Davis profiles and combining them together. So some information was accurate about me and some was not. So that's a huge thing. The second thing is weapon against humanity. And I just picked this article up last week, November 14th. It was on CBS News. It was on their website. The authors are Alex Clark and Melissa Matani. And the article is Google AI chatbot responds with a threatening message. Quote, human, please die. A grad student in Michigan received a threatening response during a chat with Google AI's chatbot Gemini. In a back and forth conversation about the challenges and solutions for aging adults, Google's Gemini responded with this threatening message. And again, we quote, this is for you, human, you and only you. You are not special, you are not important, and you are not needed. You are a waste of time and resources. You're a burden on society. You're a drain on the earth. You're a blight on the landscape. You are a stain on the universe. Please die, please. That is overwhelming. I read that and I just sat back and I went, whoa. It goes on to say that it was a 29-year-old grad student who was seeking homework help from the AI chatbot, and his sister was next to him while they were doing this. And the sister's comment was, I wanted to throw all of my devices out the window. I hadn't felt panic like that in a long time, to be honest. It goes on to say that something slipped through the cracks. There's a lot of theories from people with thorough understanding of how generative AI works, saying this kind of thing happens all the time, but I've never seen or heard of anything quite this malicious and seemingly directed to the reader, which luckily was my brother who had my support in that moment. Was interesting, and I'm looking for the comment. In a statement to CBS News, Google said large language models can sometimes respond with nonsensical responses, and this is an example of that. The responses violated our policies and we've taken action to prevent similar outputs from occurring. Where's the part I was really looking for? It's not the first time Google's chatbot has been called out for giving potentially harmful responses. They found out that AI gave incorrect, possibly lethal information. It's just one of those things where they know the information is in there. And I know there was a comment about filters that should stop something like that from coming out, but that doesn't mean that the information isn't in there to start with. So when there are challenges of concerns about weapons against humanity, this is the type of thing, even in just responding to an end user, how somebody could get that opinion. So these are definitely challenges for sure. But there's also the power of artificial intelligence, from records processing and classification. I mean, you can set it up using AI that records can be pulled in from a number of electronic records can be pulled in from a number of sources around your organization, whether it's line of business systems, SharePoint, shared drives, in various places where your records are stored, other software packages, and they can be pulled into records management software, and they can be brought in and classified to your retention schedule, which also allows you to follow the records management lifecycle, because as it's coming in and it categorizes your records or classifies your records, it's also doing that against your retention schedule, so you know the disposition time of it. You can use artificial intelligence and the power of it for security and access controls. Not only, letting people in, but doing an analysis of all different things regarding the login process and when people are logging in and how many times it took them to log in. There's a lot of different access controls that are powered by artificial intelligence that are well worthwhile. I think one of the areas which is extremely important is analytics. I mean, human beings are great. I'm an analytical person, but I can't outshine a computer. A computer is processing millions of things a second. I can't do that. Never could, never will. So you can take big data or a lot of records or whatever you've got, and use AI to process those things and perform analytics on them, and it'll do it at an accuracy rate and a speed rate that is just incredible. So there's definitely the power of artificial intelligence when it comes to analytics. And from those analytics, you have the ability for enhanced decision making. As long as AI is just analyzing data for what it is, and it's just bringing back to you the information about what you asked it to do, you should be able to use that information and perform enhanced decision making for whatever you're trying to do. With that being said, always check what the output is. I can tell you years ago when I was using ChatGPT, I would only use ChatGPT as a foundation to start something I was doing, but never to actually do it. Because there's things you could pick out which it wasn't 100% correct, or you could say it was hedging at best. And that's not what I want to use AI for. Let's talk about the future of artificial intelligence. I think that, there's going to be enhanced automation. Yes, we have the ability to bring records in from a number of systems now. They're starting to employ AI where you can have it look at the records that are coming in, and it actually sees the entire record. And once it knows it's part of a particular record type, it can start comparing records coming in to existing record types and existing examples, and actually can come back to you and say, I think with 80% accuracy, this record type is this. You still make the decision, but it gives you a clear reason on why it would recommend what it would. Security and compliance. If all of your legislation and regulations and compliance attributes are within your system, and AI has an opportunity to be exposed to that, we can definitely make sure that AI is keeping you in full compliance, and also, again, is enhancing your security. Can't mention enough the analytics. Whether you're an organization that wants to know, if you're in retail and you want to know all the different buying patterns in all the different states, or regionally, or in one country to another, if you're a global entity, there's nothing better than artificial intelligence being able to perform analytics and come back with some recommendations, or at least point you in the right direction. When I was at Commerce Bank, we did every year an analysis. We did it by day, which rolled up by month, which rolled up by quarter, and rolled up annually. What banking transactions were done in every branch, in an ATM, online. And all that information was rolled up because we wanted to see what the growth was of the bank. And other retailers and other industries can do the same thing. So the analytical power is just amazing. And I just would envision the analytics just being more and more valuable to an organization as time goes along. And then obviously with artificial intelligence, there's an improved user experience. And no, I'm not talking about websites that go, here, we're putting cookies on your system to give you an enhanced user experience. I don't buy into that. Thank you very much. But artificial intelligence can definitely help you with the improved user experience. Let's talk about data privacy. And before I go to the next screen, I checked this before we came on. There is over 8.1 billion people that live on planet Earth. It's actually closer to 8.2 billion, but we're not there yet. And that number obviously grows with new people that are born and shrinks a little bit with people that pass. So the number is always changing. But when we talk about data privacy, think about that number. And even if you just want to say 8 billion, not 8.1 billion, just say 8 billion. Imagine doing data privacy for 8 billion people. That just totally puts this into perspective. So when I said to you in previous classes about, talking about getting involved in records management and having different opportunities in different industries, privacy is one of them. This is what I'm talking about. So what is data privacy? Well, I mean, put simply, it's the protection of personal data from those who should not have access to it. It's the ability to produce the personal data upon official request. Now, individuals have a right to control how their personal information is collected, used, shared, and stored. And as you'll see in an upcoming slide, there's legislation out there. And that legislation has details about fines and potential jail time for violation of data privacy laws. It is interesting to note that laws do give individuals the right to access their personal information, correct it, or authorize the deletion of it. Now, with that being said, and I'll kind of give you advance notice, I think data privacy is one of the areas in the future where there's going to be a lot of work put in. There's been a good start, but there's a long way to go. And I think that we've seen some things that have been very concerning, whether it's our own personal information being removed from social media, and then put into a database and then try to figure out how we're going to buy something or vote for something or how we're going to get involved or not get involved. And that bothers a lot of people. There was a documentary on Netflix, and it talked about an individual who his personal information was uh, captured by a particular company, and he fought to find out what they had. And long story short, they actually went out of business. They never complied with his request, although they were legally obligated to, and they lost in court, but the company went out of business. Um, but when you think about data privacy, I want you to think about from the day you were born, what hospital you were in, how much you weighed, what your name is, who your parents are, what time of day, and it just continues to grow each and every day you're alive. All the data points about you that are being collected. I'll take a moment to give a shout out to Armid Dallas. If anybody's listening from the Armid Dallas chapter, how's it going? A couple weeks ago, I was down in Dallas. I was speaking at their seminar. Thank you very much for having the opportunity to be there. Greatly enjoyed myself, and meeting all the people. And I told the attendees the same thing that I'm going to tell you now. I was flying down. I had never been on a jet this big. It had two aisles. I'm usually on jets that have one aisle, but this had three seats, an aisle, three seats, an aisle, and three seats. It was just a huge jet, and every seat back had a screen in it, so you could watch a movie. So I watched two movies on the way down to Dallas. And one of the movies, because I'm scrolling through, I don't know what I want to watch. And don't you know that as I'm scrolling through, I think the title of the documentary was Secrets of Your Data or something like that. It was about 40 minutes. And literally, it was a documentary. And there was a character. He was a guy who was a doctor. He was taking videos of at home with his kids and his wife, and if they're out playing and they're doing this, that, and the other thing. He goes to work, he goes to the hospital, he's taking videos of him and his coworkers and what they're doing and all the things going on at the hospital. And he's posting all of these things online. And all of a sudden, kind of hits the brakes and says, what's happening with all the data? What's happening with everything I'm posting? And then the rest of the documentary were professionals that were coming in saying, oh, remember when you did this? Well, we know your telephone numbers and your address, and we know what time of day you're doing stuff. And we could tell from a geographic location what address you were at. And the amount of information they were coming out with was incredible. This is all about data privacy. And I think that we as individuals, while we want to hold companies accountable for the information they have about us, I think that we also have to be accountable to ourselves to understand how that information gets out there and do our best to control it. Once it's out there, it's out there. But you can definitely play a role in what information of yours is out there. But if you're it's been said before, it'll be said again. If you're in the United States, everything about you is out there. But that's data privacy. Again, there are a number of data privacy laws. A lot of people remember when it started years ago over in Europe with the GDPR, the General Data Protection Regulation. Within the United States, we have several states, and there's probably more than these. But the CCPA, the California Consumer Privacy Act, Virginia Consumer Data Protections Act, the Colorado Privacy Act, Canada has theirs, and there were multiple countries that had their law named the same thing, the Personal Data Protection Act. I think that you are going to get to a point where every country is going to have their own privacy laws. And in the United States, it wouldn't surprise me if every state has their privacy laws. And that makes it very difficult for a national company because you have to comply with the privacy laws within every state you operate. So if you're in all 50 states and all 50 states have their own law, you're probably going to need somebody on your staff that's dedicated to privacy. But there are a ton of privacy laws out there, and there's good reason for it. And it's out there to try to protect you and give you rights to your personal data. When it comes to the future of data privacy, I think we're going to have enhanced data rights. I think we've had enough examples going around about our rights being violated or things being done behind the scenes without our knowledge, our information being captured and we didn't even know they had it. So I think you're going to see a push by the consumer, and rightfully so, for enhanced data rights, which will then generate new data privacy laws. Now, in the United States, will we end up having a culmination of all the state laws rolled up into a national law? Don't know that. But there definitely has to be, some type of structure to what happens. And I see new data privacy laws coming down the line. So like I said, if you have a penchant for privacy and you want to get involved in it from a records management standpoint, I think you're gonna have an opportunity to really sink your teeth into this one. You can definitely use artificial intelligence for a driven privacy compliance, because again, just technology can do things so much quicker, so much more accurately than human beings can. So I see AI-driven privacy compliance. And just like we have information governance, you're going to have a data privacy governance framework. And one of the things, I guess one of the last things I'll say about data privacy, and this goes towards anything when somebody is doing something wrong, you're going to have to see larger monetary penalties. Let's just say you have a company, whoever the company is, and they make $1 billion every quarter. So their revenue is $4 billion a year. If they're violating data privacy and the fine is only $50,000, that's not going to hurt them at all. They don't want to lose $50,000, but that's not a large enough fine to make it hurt. If you have a company that's making $4 billion a year and they get fined $2 billion or even $1 billion, when you lose 25% of your revenue or 50% of your revenue because you violated a law, that's going to make you stand up and take notice and comply, because the next fine is going to be larger. So if the fines and the penalties hurt, then you've got a chance at turning this thing around and having companies comply. But if the fines or the penalties just kind of make them go, well, we're not buying flowers for the executive area today, then it didn't do a thing, and they're going to keep doing what they were doing, which we don't want them to do. All right, let's talk about security. What does security mean to you? Because when I think about security, I think about four things. I think about people, I think about buildings, I think about systems, and I think about our records. We have security threats that are internal. And again, some of you may question why I pick the different graphics I do. Obviously, a German Shepherd is considered a security dog. So when we're talking about security threats, that applies. But of course, a lot of you know that I am a dog lover. So when I look at that picture, I think, look at the pretty puppy. But I know that pretty puppy can help out in security as well. So I'm very glad that he or she is there. A lot of times when we think about internal threats, we're not thinking about people on the inside making mistakes. We're always thinking about people from the outside breaking in and doing something wrong. That's not always the case. Internal threats can be an accidental data loss. Maybe something gets deleted or it gets moved and you don't realize it. Or, somebody does, just from sheer human error, makes a mistake and there's data loss because of it. Maybe there's unauthorized access. Maybe they've shared their logon, their username and password to someone they thought was trustworthy, which you should never share your username and log on. We'll tell you that one right now. And that person wasn't trustworthy. But it could be through unauthorized access. And then obviously there's someone on the inside who makes the conscious decision to perform data theft. So those are just a few of the internal threats that can happen. And the solutions that can combat that are, access controls that are tighter. Employee training will also educate your employees about why they need to do what they're doing and how it should be done. If you're performing consistent audits, that's also going to help thwart security threats, and to have an incident response plan and process. Anytime, again, I'm a structure guy, I'm a detail guy, and if you have an incident response plan with a process, then you're working that plan and you're working that process, and that's just another reason why internal security threats can get thwarted. Then we move on to security threats that are external, and these are the ones that we do know about. These are the cyber attacks. These are the ones we hear about, the data breaches, or we hear about ransomware, where, again, that can also be an internal threat too, where somebody sends you an email, you may click on a link, thinking it's something else, and then all of a sudden they install ransomware in your system, lock up your whole system, and then they say, well, you pay me X amount of dollars or whatever money, and we'll give you the code to unlock get your records back again. So those are a number of those threats. Obviously, top of the list in bright red letters is training. Those are the solutions. It all starts with training, making sure that your employees understand, training. I mean, there's things as easy as, and I've had this happen with several employers, where they engage with outside companies to test you as an employee, sending emails in, making phone calls, to try to impersonate somebody, to get you to give up passwords, to give up logons, or in emails, they want you to click on a link. But it's done in a training session. So if you do that, the next thing that happens is you get an email or a message pops up that said, this was a training email, you failed. Training is always helpful. Now, I can't remember what show it was. I'm getting older now. But a number of years ago, there was a documentary, and a guy was trying to show them how easy it was to call up and get information from a company. And he called up and he got this person in this one department, and he was looking for financial information and account numbers. And he was telling them why he couldn't use his computer and why he was calling. And they said, well, what is your name? And he said, my name is Lamangelo. And they said, could you spell that? And he said, yeah, capital L, small e, capital M, O-N, J-E-L-L-O. And there was a pause. And the person on the other end said to him, do you know that spells lemon jello? And he laughed. He goes, yeah, I get that all the time. But that joke was enough to make the other person in the company relax. And yes, they gave him personal information. But it was all a test and they failed. So it's even things like that. Now, again, I'm going to reach out to my IT brothers and sisters out there for the other solutions, the network security, the data backups. Obviously, with ransomware, if you're backing up your data all the time, you can always go back and recover. Well, I shouldn't say always, because I'm not an IT person, but you should be able to go back and recover from a previous backup and restart your system. They're always writing software security patches for the software you have installed. You should make sure that you're up to date with all the security patches, and definitely have a third-party risk management program so that your vendors are on the same page you are when it comes to the level of security and the security threats that can happen. For the future of security, I'm going to tell you that from a physical record standpoint, one of the greatest things we can do is moving towards the less paper society. We're never going to be to the paperless society. Never, ever, 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 ever. It's just not going to happen. We'll talk about the government in a few minutes, but the U.S. federal government is moving towards records being sent to NAR from here on out that are electronic only. So they're moving towards that. But even with physical records, you can definitely have a robust security infrastructure. You can poke holes in the pickups and deliveries of your physical records, depending on the size of your organization. So you have to close the gaps. And that happens with a robust security infrastructure, enhanced transportation initiatives, knowing who's bonded, what are their procedures, and obviously audits and inspections at all times. From electronic record standpoint, stronger access controls in the government. They're also talking about zero trust, which means you really have to prove who you are right from the very beginning. Nobody's given a free pass. So you'll start to see things like multi-factor authentication and other security access protocols that have to be met before you can get into a system, security access reviews, and data encryption. So as an example with security access review, this is where AI can come into play. Let's just say I'm an employee and I should only be working from 9 to 5, and you have AI recording every time somebody logs into the system or tries to. If all of a sudden Ray Davis is logging into the system at 3 in the morning consistently several days in a row, why is that happening? So you're going to be having an access review, which should then, put up a red flag to say somebody needs to check with Ray Davis and find out what's going on, because either he's logging in because he's getting up in the middle of the night and he's not going back to sleep, or we have somebody who could be trying to get into the system that shouldn't be. All right, we've got the evolving regulatory landscape. We talked about these slides before in a previous class. We'll go through them fairly quickly. Legislation versus regulation. Legislation is created by legislative bodies. It's broad and general. You're establishing a framework for laws and policies. It involves a process of drafting, debating, and voting on bills, which brings out statutes, acts, and codes, while regulations are developed by administrative agencies. They're more specific and detailed than legislation, and it involves a rulemaking process that can include public comment and hearings. And what comes from that are rules, orders, and decrees. Just an example of legislation and regulations for the U.S. government: Federal Records Act of 1950, the Freedom of Information Act, the Privacy Act of 1974. Those are all pieces of legislation. Where regulations brought out by the government are the general record schedules that the government agencies use when they're retaining their records, and then 2 memorandums that came out regarding moving towards the electronic records path, M1921 and M2307. So those are regulations that they want government agencies to comply with. The last regulation, I believe M2307, June 30th of this year. After that, NAR wants, unless there are exceptions granted, they want any permanent records going to NAR to be in electronic format. For commercial businesses, you've got Sarbanes-Oxley Act of 2002. If you're in the health industry, you've got HIPAA, the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or Gramm-Leach-Bliley, and there's a number of other legislations. But then you also have various government agencies that are putting out regulations. FINRA, the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, puts out their rules. So does the SEC, the Security Exchange Commission, and then various regulations by the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. I think for the future of legislation and regulations, I think it's all going to be focused more towards the electronic side of the house. Not that there isn't any need for regulations or legislation that can apply to physical records, but records management is moving, thankfully, towards the electronic side. So I think you're going to see more legislation and regulations that are dealing with data privacy and cybersecurity. I think when it comes to artificial intelligence, I don't think people know enough about it yet. They've heard about it, they've developed their own opinion, but there needs to be some legislation and regulation about artificial intelligence. We have it out there called the Internet of Things, and we have so many devices out there. And I happen to think about it today. I was talking to my cable provider. It also does my Wi-Fi and everything else. And in my head, when they say how many of your devices are connected in your house, I'm thinking, okay, well, I've got my phone and I've got my wireless router, and okay, I've got this and that. And it turns out that I probably have almost 24 devices connected in my house, but I wasn't thinking about it that way. I have a device that allows me to work in coordination with my cable provider, but I don't get charged by my cable provider, but I can get all my cable programming. That's on 3 different TVs in my house. My thermostat is on Wi-Fi. So, and there's all these different things that we don't even think about, where data, there's an access point to come in and either steal data or get data. And I also think that from the future of legislation and regulations, I think there's going to be a more of a global records management perspective on what we see. Uh, Not all companies are global. Some are small, some are in one state, or they're regional. They could be national, but not global. But I think there are enough companies now that are just getting to global that we realize that there needs to be cross-border records laws. What happens with records that are not in your country, that are in another country, or they're in multiple states? How do those laws work? And I think that there's going to be local, state, national, and international cooperation when it comes to how those records are managed, how they're accessed, and how they're protected. The hybrid work environment. 2020 taught us how to work remotely. Yeah, prior to 2020, there was a few people working at home. It wasn't a big thing. But obviously in 2020, when COVID hit, in the beginning, we were all sent home. And it was an uproar. How do we work with this? How do we make this happen? So we had to figure out from a technology standpoint. I mean, you couldn't pick your desktop system up and take it home. You needed a laptop. So what technology did you need? What access had to be worked on and installed to grant you permissions to come in and access the systems that you were? What security was going to be in place because you were operating remotely? Work schedules, were you all working from home? Were you working a staggered schedule? So some of your staff was in the office and some was home and they rotated. You know, how is there a level of collaboration that we need in the teamwork environment? And then also, the managing of physical records versus electronic records. Nothing like a global pandemic like COVID to show you how difficult and expensive the moving of paper can be. There were a number of companies who weren't prepared for that, and all of a sudden they have employees working from home, and you're going to have a records company deliver company records to somebody's personal residence. How's the level of security there? So there was a lot of things that had to be sorted through, and that also helped push more towards the electronic records side of the house as well. So, but again, 2020 taught us how to work remotely. There are definitely some positives from it: increased employee satisfaction, improved work-life balance, reduced operational costs for the employee anyway, because they're not, if they're driving in or they're taking public transportation, they're not spending money for that. And from the employee perspective, there's an increased level of productivity. There were also some negatives where the employers are still paying for unused office space. I did a presentation several years ago, and I don't remember the exact number, but during COVID, I think they said in the state of New York, you could fill you could take 10 Empire State Buildings of empty office space, and that's how much empty office space was in the state of New York, because everybody was working from home, but those buildings were still being paid for. There's a level of isolation. I mean, when you're working at home and during COVID, I was going out once a week. On Saturday mornings, I would drop my furry child off at doggy day camp. I would hit the supermarket, the post office, a couple of the retail stores, the pharmacy if I had to go there, and I was back home. Other than that, I didn't see anybody. And there's an isolation problem with that, because even though you're talking to people, even if it's over Teams or Zoom or you're on the phone, there's still a level of isolation there. Security risks were always a problem because of remote work. That the IT people tried to close that gap and eliminate it. In the beginning, difficulty managing remote teams, that did get better over time. Blurred work-life boundaries. Yeah, you're working at home, but you're home. So are you really working? Which decreased productivity is more towards the employer's thought process of it, that they have employees at home and they're goofing around. So from the employee perspective, it was increased productivity. From the employer's perspective, it was decreased. But let's talk about the future of the hybrid work environment. I think that's also going to be dependent on the companies and the industries. Over here in Philadelphia, the mayor, Sherelle Parker, just mandated that all public employees or the city employees come back to work. And she saw that as not only just getting everybody back in person, but people will be back in the city. They would be buying lunches and breakfast in the city, so it would help other businesses. So an effect of more than just the city of Philadelphia itself as an employer, but the surrounding community. But everybody's going to be different. I think there'll be a scheduled time split between home and office. So if you're in the office environment, I can tell you right now, the value of in-person FaceTime, it's awesome. There's nothing like being in a room with people, and it's all about the team. I also see the part about the remote environment. And what I would encourage you to do if you are working remotely, make sure there's a dedicated workspace towards your job in your house. Don't sit in your living room with a tray in your lap that holds your laptop and you're staring at the TV. That you need dedicated workspace. Eliminate the potential distractions and keep your same routine. If I'm working in the office, I'm up at 7 o'clock. If I'm working remotely, I'm up at 7:30. But my routine, other than that, I start the workday at the same time. I end the workday at the same time. I always try to keep the same routine no matter where I'm at. And that's really important. And that's where I think the future of the hybrid work environment be. I don't think we'll ever all be back in the office again, and we're never all just going to be all home. It's not going to happen. It'll be a hybrid, and it'll be based off of the organization and probably the industry. Let's talk about how you can influence the future of records management. You can do that when you expand your knowledge, become a subject matter expert, read books, listen to webinars like this, attend seminars, join associations. There's a number of great associations out there. Do some networking, meet other people. They'll be your peers. And again, I've said this before, when I go to the ARMA conference, wherever it may be, I know that there are going to be a group of people that I will see the one and only time in the year will be at that ARMA conference. And we always look for one another, even if you say, hi, how you doing? I missed you. What have you been doing for the last year? And we'll text and chat during the year. But those networking opportunities are just, they're just the most. It really just is. It's just amazing. And then again, if you want to expand your knowledge, make it a career. Records management is a darn good career. And I've been in it for over 30 years. So I can tell you that. The next one isn't as easy. It's called become an advocate. Use your voice. Now, a lot of people don't feel comfortable stepping up and standing up in front of people and talking. It's something that you have to get comfortable with over time. It started with me speaking at my local ARMA meetings. I've spoken at the ARMA conference. I do webinars. I've had 2 different talk radio shows. I'm doing educational stuff like this. So I feel very comfortable doing this. But use your voice. Use your voice in your organization. Be a spokesperson about records management in your organization, and as well as in any associations you belong to. Talk to if you join a board, again, contribute how you can. But be a voice within your association. It starts with your local chapter board and could go up to an international board for the association. The next one's a little bit more difficult, to your legislators. Not everybody feels comfortable reaching out to local, state, or national legislators. They don't feel comfortable doing that. If you do, feel free. Follow the news. That's how you know the latest things that are going on. That's how I got that article off of CBS News. It was on an app on my phone about the Google AI chatbot and what happened. If I didn't have that app on my phone, I'd have never seen that article or had an opportunity to share it with you, but I'm glad I did. And then, trust but verify. All too often these days, when we see people speaking on the news or on various programs, the assumption is that they're an expert and they're fact checked and we know that what they're saying is accurate. What I will tell you is listen to what they have to say and then trust, but verify. or as Rich once said to me, you know, Ray, I heard your mother loves you, but I think you better check with your mom first before you take that as 100%. And I definitely agree with that. But my mom does love me, Rich. Thank you very much. And finally, I want you to dare to dream. What doesn't exist, but you'd like it if it would? Again, nothing is off the table. What will be the next advancements in artificial intelligence, in technology, in legislation, or global collaboration, or other? Be a part of the future. One of the things that we have done in the past, in all the shows I've done, is we've said, I want you to imagine you're at your retirement party. Your career is done, and you're making a speech to the people at your retirement party, thanking them for being there, and you have an opportunity to talk about all the things you accomplished during your career. This is where you get to make stuff up. Again, you're using this future retirement party as a way to create stuff about what you would like to see while you're still in records management. Nothing is off the table. Nothing is too ridiculous. Rich and I were talking earlier today. For those of you that remember Star Trek, the sci-fi show in the 60s, almost everything in that show is real now. They had the communicator, which is now the cell phone. And obviously you need a different communication device if you're talking to somebody in outer space, but that can still be done. Dr. McCoy had a tricorder, and he would wave it over the patient's body, and it would come back with all the vital signs and all the different things. Well, think about apps on our phone that we hold the phone up to a patch on our arm, and it can come back with our blood sugar level, our blood pressure level, our heartbeat. So all these things in the 60s that were just not real at the time are real now. Think of it the same way. What doesn't exist today that you would like to exist in records management? Nothing is too crazy. Now, they might not all work out, but when you're dreaming, nothing is too crazy. I will also tell you, I want you to dream from a personal perspective too, because what you dream for yourself personally and what you do personally rolls up into your career. So this is something I do with my life coach every year. We talk about what are my personal goals, and we'll do that. What are my personal goals for 2025? What are my work goals for 2025? What are my professional goals for 2025? And again, these are all things I want to accomplish in the next 12 months. You can do that too. And as Al Pacino once said, your reach should always exceed your grasp. If you can always take out your hand and reach what you're looking for, you're never going a little farther. You're going to be comfortable and you're going to stay where you're at. Always keep reaching. Always keep reaching, bringing yourself forward. So dream from a personal perspective too. All right. Yes, we could not end this semester and get out of here without talking about Ray Nostradamus. That's right. I'm going to put my Ray Nostradamus hat on, and we're going to talk about 2025. Now, I'm going to tell you, I'm not making any wild predictions. I am not the prophet and the seer that was Nostradamus in the 1500s. But I will tell you, from the topics we talked about today, when it comes to artificial intelligence, I think that we don't know enough about it yet, and people are still kind of overreacting to it. Those that are saying, oh, this is all wonderful, as well as those that are all saying, oh, this is horrible. So we're going to have a reactive approach. And some of the times we're going to do what we call fire, ready, aim, rather than ready, aim, fire. So we have to be aware that we're not doing things in the right sequence at times. And I think once we gain a greater understanding of artificial intelligence, we won't have that reactionary role. We'll be more proactive and more calm. But I think into 2025, we're still going to have that fire, ready, aim approach. I think there'll be enhanced search and retrieval, especially when it comes to the discovery process. We're doing great now. I think you're going to see advances there. Obviously, the classification of records will still be happening. And I wouldn't worry about jobs being lost because of AI. What I would say is you'll be able to realign your staff to do other things within your department because you're allowing technology to do those things that it does better. So I don't think you're going to lose jobs and people. I think you're going to be able to reassign where they're at. When it comes to data privacy, I think that you're going to see more legislation because more legislation is needed, and you're also going to see larger fines. Again, as I said before, that's the only thing that's going to start to slow down what's happening in violating data privacy laws. The fines have to be large enough to hurt. From a security perspective, I feel extremely bad for my IT counterparts. They have a tough job because they have people on the outside trying to break into systems and hack systems and steal information and steal data and do data breaches, and they don't know how they're going to do it. So I think unfortunately, you're going to see information technology and from the security aspect of it, you're going to see a continuation of being reactive to what's going on and not proactive because it's changing every day. Hackers and people doing data breaches are not nice people that are going to say, oh, we're going to do it this way this week and we're going to do it this way next week. No, they're going to try to do a new way. Once you figure out what they're doing now, they're going to figure out a new approach. I do believe that from a security standpoint, you're going to see the analysis of systems and people and logons and passwords and everything about what's going on. I think you're going to see enhanced analysis so that they can try to combat the negativity. And you're going to see a tougher level of access come up. I know that's not a professional comment, tougher access. But you're going to see more. What is the word I'm looking for? I will stick with tougher access. There's just going to be different things dumped on you on how you're going to get into your systems. From a legislation standpoint, and especially in the United States, to me, it's going to be on you. For the elections that just happened, the current presidential administration will be leaving, and there'll be a new administration entering the White House in January. So don't look for your legislative representatives in Washington to be even thinking about records management software or information governance or data privacy. They're going to be thinking, okay, we have a new administration coming in. We have to see what their goals and objectives are and see how they're going to interact. So they're not going to be thinking about that. It's about laws and legislation and regulations going to be on you. So keep communicating with them, keep it on their plate, let them know what's important to you and what they should be focused on. But again, I think our legislators will be focused in a different area. And again, from a work environment standpoint, I think it's going to be a hybrid work environment that won't be consistent. It'll be based off of the company and maybe even an industry type. So again, nothing radical, nothing crazy, nothing over the top, but that was Ray Nostradamus for 2025. Our last Records Management Extreme Championships performance tip: believe in you. It doesn't matter what I believe. I believe in you. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if your family believes in you or your friends believe in you. It all starts with you. You have to believe in you, and you should, because you're smart and you care and you can be focused and you can get the job done. That all starts with you. So believe in you. So that's the last Extreme Championship performance tip for this semester. And I want to say congratulations. You've completed Class 5. Today, we've talked about artificial intelligence, data privacy, security, the evolving regulatory landscape. We've talked about the hybrid work environment and how you can influence the future of records management. We talked about a lot, and we've talked about a lot of stuff this semester. But I want to say congratulations. The IDEA Fall 2024 semester has come to a close. So move the tassel from one side of your cap to the other. You have now graduated from the semester. After this class is over, I want you to look for an email with a semester survey to complete. It's only about 6 questions or 8 questions, really short. But once you complete the survey, you'll receive an email with a certificate that you'll be able to customize and download. It's just like the one on the screen. I was able to put my name in, and November 20th was the date I put in. And then you can save it or print it or do both. And that's just proof that you've, when you need to go prove you have these continuing education credits. But when it comes to the survey, and again, we want to talk about the IDEA Spring 2025 semester. You have input, and that's what the survey is about. We started this semester with Records Management 101. I've got some ideas about what I'd like to talk about in the spring 2025 semester, but I want to talk about what you want to talk about. So complete the survey. Again, it's only 6 or 8 questions. Tell us what your pain points are. Tell us what topics you're interested in. Did you like the program? Did you like this semester? Again, just please, if you could just, go question by question, complete the survey, tell us what's important to you, and I'll get a semester for spring 2025 together that'll be a culmination of what all the attendees are thinking. So with that, I'll turn this back over to my colleague, Mr. Rich Slaughter, and he's going to talk to you for about a quick minute. Rich?
Thank you, Ray. I just wanted to thank everybody for attending. For those that have attended, all of them, some of them, and then there's some new attendees on today. One thing before you go, we've had a number of inquiries this fall about some of the registrants asking about, inquiring about long-range plans, short-range plans, issues they've got, challenges. Between now and the end of the year, we love records management. Don't hesitate. If you'd like to give us a call, email, we're happy to, no obligation. We can just brainstorm some ideas and might help you for the new year. But in the meantime, have a great holiday, and we look forward to the spring series. And that's all we have for today. And Ray, if you're done, we will close it out.
Yeah, I just want to say again from Rich and I, thank you for being a part of this, inaugural IDEA Fall 2024 semester. Along with the RIM Blueprint, here's our email addresses. You can always send us an email with your questions, your comments, your suggestions. Would love to have that. And then, from the bottom of our heart here at Innovative Development and IDEA, just wishing all of you a safe, happy, and healthy new year. And we hope to see you for the IDEA Spring 2025 semester. So again, thank you everybody for being a part of our fall semester and the 5 classes and for tuning in. Hope that you do that next year. But take care, have a great day, and we hope to talk to you soon. Take care.